This is Talking Drupal, a weekly chat about web design and development from a group of people with one thing in common. We love Drupal. This is episode 513, Back to the Office. On today's show, we're talking about working from home, heading back to the office, and the current state of remote work with our guest, Kaleem Clarkson. We'll also cover Microsoft 365 Connector as our module of the week. As the Chief Operating Officer, Kaleem ensures all of Blemmy Inc.'s services and programs follow the strategic plan and the vision of CEO. With nearly 20 years of strategic operations and event planning experience, his passions have always revolved around the stakeholder experience, from concert and conference attendees to professional development programs for distributed remote and telecommute employees. Welcome back to the show and thank you for joining us.
Oh, talking Drupal. We back, baby. We back. Nick, John, we back, baby. John, that sounded weird. That didn't even feel right. Who is John?
Hey, listen, you'll get there. You'll get there
Okay.
eventually.
That came it didn't feel right. Is John not your professional name?
I mean, it's what I go by on most legal documents.
Okay. Nice to meet you, John.
I'm Nick Laughlin, founder at Enlightened Development, and today my co-hosts are joining us for the next 4 weeks as guest hosts, Rich Lawson. Rich is the Associate Director of Technology at Evolving Web, located in the Chicago area. He has over 16 years of Drupal experience. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. Nice to meet everybody.
And joining us as usual, John Picozzi, Solution Architect at EPAM.
Hi, it's me.
And now to talk about our module of the week, let's turn it over to Martin Anderson Klutz, a principal solutions engineer at Acquia and a maintainer of a number of Drupal modules and recipes of his own. Martin, what do you have for us this week?
Thanks, Nick. Have you ever wanted your Drupal site to integrate with Microsoft 365 so users can log in with their Azure AD credentials and then have direct access to shared files, see recent emails, and more? There's a module for that. It's called Microsoft 365 Connector and was created in July of 2019 by user Immoreal, though the most recent release is by Boris Dosberg, who goes by Batagolix, both a finalist, a Dutch Drupal shop. Now, it has 5.0.22 and 5.1.0 beta 1 versions available, the latter of which supports Drupal 9.4, 10, and 11. It is actively maintained and has both security and test coverage, as well as not one but two documentation guides available. It has 18 open issues, one of which is technically a bug, but postponed, waiting for more info, both of which are pretty good considering the site is officially in use by, coincidentally, 365 sites according to Drupal.org. Now, this module integrates your Drupal site with the Microsoft Graph API, a unified API that provides a single endpoint for accessing data and intelligence from Microsoft 365 services, including Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, and more. Microsoft 365 Connector includes more than a dozen submodules, each of which provides specific capabilities like single sign-on, syncing data to Drupal user accounts, sending Teams messages from within Drupal, and more. You can also use this module to do things like automatically add an event node to your Outlook calendar and invite other people at the same time. It's worth noting that in the documentation guide, the submodules are named Office 365, which is probably what the module was named until around 5 years ago when Microsoft retired the Office 365 name. Finally, setting up this module requires registering an app in Azure AD, so it's not for the casual user. But if you're working on an intranet or similar collaboration platform for an organization that is heavily invested in the Microsoft 365 suite, this could make for a compelling integration. So let's talk about Microsoft 365 Connector.
So when you first started talking about this, I was like, no, I would never integrate with Microsoft 365. Like, that sounds like a terrible idea. And as you started describing it and talking about the features, I was like, all right, I can see how this would be wildly useful. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. This sounds I won't go out there and say it's great, but it sounds like a really good way to integrate with your Microsoft suite, especially if you're looking for that Azure AD single sign-on connection for Drupal. That sounds like a winner. And I mean, I don't know. I think right now, like getting an Azure API key or app ID, is pretty pretty easy. I think most users can handle that. I don't know if you need to be that advanced to be able to do that, but maybe.
Yeah, I would say it's not so much a question of being advanced as having sort of the role with the permissions to do that. There is a documentation page in the guide that sort of walks you through the exact steps. So as you say, it's not complicated. It's just not every person has the access to go ahead and do that. So
Yeah,
I
the
wonder, does it
average
create
user.
users right away? Does it create users right away, right when you sign on? What do you think?
so at least according to the way the documentation is written, it will actually create users as they sign in through single sign on.
Oh,
There
that's
it
pretty
is.
cool. I use
We
so
like that.
back in the day, old school Drupal. I remember like the LDAP module that used to do kind of the same thing to connect to Active Directory, and that would basically there was a setting there where you could create the user and then link it to their AD and then pull in even roles via their AD roles if that was in there. So very interesting. It's good to see these things evolving. Like I think the Teams integration, that's pretty cool too. I'm like, oh, I could see definitely some very useful things coming out of that, especially maybe with ECA where it's like, oh, post a team message when this node gets updated or an event gets added or something like that. So
Hmm,
definitely some pretty useful stuff there, I think.
interesting.
We
Yeah,
got a interesting from Nick, which,
yeah.
it's
I'll
on a
have to think about that.
Microsoft
I mean,
thing, so.
I have some clients who integrate pretty heavily with both Teams and Slack, and we usually use third party systems to integrate those. But it'd be interesting to connect directly to Microsoft. It might streamline some things.
Go download
Yeah,
it. Go check it out. Module of the week.
there you go.
I definitely don't have permission to create an app in the Microsoft organization for that client. So
You gotta go up the food chain for that one, I think.
several levels, but yeah, it might be worth exploring. So I will be if I do use this, I'll report back to our listeners. All right, thank you, Martin. How can folks connect with you if they want to suggest another module of the week or just chat about one from the show?
We are always happy to talk about module candidates for Module of the Week in the Talking Drupal channel of Drupal Slack, or folks can reach out to me directly as ManClue on all of the Drupal and social platforms.
Yeah.
Awesome. See you next
You
week.
guys should have maybe Smart Date sometime as a module of the week. I mean, I don't know.
Oh, I mean,
Just
there's
just throwing it out there.
we're
I think
we're
it was
big fans of shameless self-promotion here. Have you ever listened to our show
I don't know what you're
before?
talking about. I have no idea. I just said I think it'd be a good idea, maybe because I think that's a cool module. So check that out. Check that out.
It actually was covered as Module of the Week, ironically, I think back in episode 365. So there you go. It all comes full circle.
Oh, freaking 365. Can't get away from
Yeah.
Microsoft ever.
That was actually an episode that you were on, Kaleem. It was the last time you were on the show.
We're bringing it all together. Martin, if nothing, he's all about the Easter eggs.
All right.
Oh, this
Thank you,
shit keeps
Martin.
getting better.
Appreciate it.
See you next.
See you next week. Kaleem, before we jump into the topic today, can you remind our listeners what Blend Me Inc. does?
Yeah. So we work with small businesses and we provide fractional HR leadership. So if you do not have an HR department or you do not have an HR person, we have contractors that can serve in that capacity on a part-time basis. And our contractors have experience and have worked at companies such as Google, Amazon, Tesla. Okay, what's the other one? And EY. So yeah, that's what we do. We specialize in remote work, people operations. So we started in 2013. So we've been talking a lot about remote work for a long time. Yeah, that's what we do.
So, needless to say, you're a subject matter expert on remote work and the current state of, back to office and all things or almost all things HR, right?
Yeah.
So let's dive into the remote work topic, right? And I'm super excited to have you here because I have so many questions about the current state of remote work and
Mm.
like I don't know, just how companies are kind of like dealing with the whole thing. And we have a whole slew of questions. We'll get into those. But first, like My impression of kind of like the remote work landscape, right, is that
Mhm.
like it feels a little uneasy right now. Is that accurate? Would you agree with that assessment?
When you say it feels a little uneasy right now, specifically, what are you kinda asking?
I mean, I guess I mean like in general, like the appetite from a corporate standpoint for remote work feels like people are like kind of reversing their position. You know, a lot of companies would be like, "Yeah, remote work. We do remote work. We do hybrid. We do this. We do that." And now they're kind of like, "No, you got to come to an office, bro."
Yeah,
And it
yeah.
just feels kind of like I don't know, uneasy is the best way I can describe it right now.
Yeah, I would say that that is a good word. I would say conflicting opinions is a good word. I would say conflict is probably a better word. I would say feelings versus data driven, I would say. So yeah, right now we're seeing a lot of return to office mandates, but we're not seeing a lot of data accompanying those return to office mandates as
Mm,
far as the purpose. I think right now, I think where you're seeing a major divide is between the employee who, geez, 2025, it's insane to think the pandemic was 5 years ago, going on 6 years, you know? So people are frustrated with leadership because it's like, man, we've been doing this for a lot of people, John. I mean, we all know many of us Drupal families have been doing this remote work for a really long time, where I learned a lot of my remote work concepts and strategies from. So for some people, they've been working remotely for over a decade, maybe 15 years. And they're like,
mm.
well, what are you talking about? Like
And
returning
very
to office.
successfully, right? They've been doing it very
And
well, right?
so, yeah, I would say definitely divided opinions for sure. I think there's a lot of headlines returning. We got to get back to work, but then you're also finding employees equally as frustrated. So I'd say frustrated probably is another term. A lot of people are frustrated.
So that's really insightful, Clean. A question that I had is why do you think you had mentioned that you don't really think it's data driven so much, but what do you think is driving that? What's the motivation for companies to bring employees back to the office? What do you think they're thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, this is a real, tough one. Because everyone is different. Everyone has different feelings, and I think if you come out of the pandemic and you want to ask, what did we learn from that situation? Is that people's experiences are are vastly different, and their situations are different. So how they want to work varies. So that's why we didn't see all remote 100% of the time, and now we're not seeing all in office because people have different flows and different desires. So when you talk about the, why are we seeing people come back to the office, every organization's different. You may have a leader who feels that's the best way to work because that's how they were brought up. That's how she shook hands on the golf course or he shook hands on the golf course or whatever. That's all they know. So you see some of that. And then you're seeing just pressure. You have government pressure now. You have the federal government. First thing they do, they come in and say everybody must return to the office. So there's plenty of data, including their own research within the government, saying how productive remote work is. They're ignoring that and saying you got to go back to the office. So you have some political pressure there. Then you have some local political pressure. Some of these cities and downtowns, San Francisco, they call it the what is it? The Salesforce tax, they call it. These companies get huge, major tax breaks for putting their offices in downtowns to spur economic development and people going downtown. So you have some local people, some pressure. And then last but not least, corporate real estate. We are very concerned. This is something that I think the market is very concerned about, and you're not hearing a lot about it. There are a lot of loans that are coming up, billions of dollars of loans coming up on real estate. The question will be, will companies, renew their leases? So now you also have commercial real estate, the commercial real estate industry Generally, people who are investing in commercial real estate are very wealthy in the C-suite. Their portfolios are attached to it. So now you have that. So, whew, sorry that took me so long, but there are obviously a lot of different facets outside of productivity. Notice I did not say
Yeah.
productivity.
Yeah,
Uh,
productivity is definitely not one of them. I think there's one
no,
other reason too that you didn't highlight, Gleam, and I want to talk about the productivity thing in a second. But let's be real too. It's a way to get people to quit. You know, if they want to downsize without
Right.
saying that they're downsizing,
thank you, Nick.
they know that people want to work from home. You force them to come back to the office. You're gonna lose a percentage of your workforce, and you can just call it people quitting, not a downsizing.
Nick, you took the question right out of my mouth. I was gonna say, like, is this a
Yeah,
tactic to reduce headcount? Because it sure
yeah.
does feel like it to me. Because
It
I know
it
plenty of people that are like,
absolutely is.
they're like, "Oh, my company's forcing me to go back to work. I'm looking for a new job." And I'm like,
Yeah,
"Oh, okay.
absolutely. A 100%.
100% it is. Yes, you were 100%
Yeah.
right. And by the way, do you know what you're saving you if someone quits versus, layoffs?
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, well, it depends on the company and what their benefit packages are, but it's
compensate you quit. Yeah, yeah, yeah. A lot of times you're
You
saving
you give up on a potential severance if you quit, right?"
exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
and then talking about productivity, I mean, companies have shown I mean, every study that's looked at it has shown that remote work is as productive, if not more. I mean, there's exceptions, obviously, right? You can't run a restaurant remotely. And I'll contend, even the job that we do, web development, this kind of thing, there are things that are just more efficient in person, right? Certain brainstorming activities, blue sky design, like that kind of stuff, or like user experience stuff, being in person for those types of things, which can be done on like a retreat or something, yes, those are way more efficient, way more productive in person. It takes more work to make those types of projects successful remotely. But
100%.
the vast majority of jobs that people do in the tech space, remote is more productive. I
A
like
lot
what
of it's
you said about
preference.
yeah, it's what people wanna do. Where like me, I can't work in an office. There's too many distractions, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then when you own a company, like it, I have been trying to go a little bit easier on, you know, leaders of companies, especially in the small business. I'm trying to be a little bit more empathetic because can you imagine you create this company and you just love it so much? Because like I think that's for huge corporations. Let's just leave them out of it a little bit because I feel like they're getting all the headlines and it's not really showing the true numbers. We'll dive into some kind of how flexible society really is because we're a lot more flexible than we ever have been. I just kind of feel like these leaders, they don't know any other way. So just imagine yourself, you built this entity, you love this entity, and you enjoy going into the office. And there's nothing better than going into your office and seeing a whole bunch of people working and high fiving. And that connection is something that you can't replace. And I think when people talk about we need to bring people back to the office because of our culture, they're really talking about connection. They're really talking about that feeling that when you walk into that feeling that you're getting just hanging out talking to people has really very minimal to do with productivity. And yes, it's very important to be more connected to your employees. Like a huge proponent of that. But that is the thing that you can't replace. And I think CEOs and owners of companies, they created that excitement and that energy. And it feels horrible. It feels awful walking into an office that you created this type of feeling and now that feeling is gone. I mean, I get it. I know the business is about making money, but we
No, no,
are
no,
talking
not
about
even
like
that. Not
emotion.
even that, but, like, if I'm the creator, I'm the CEO of a company, right? Like, yes, I have an obligation to, like, make money, and if I'm a public company, I have an obligation to stockholders, and I have an obligation but, like, maybe, equal or maybe even above that, I have an obligation to my employees, right? And if I build a company and let's go back to that small business model, right, that you were just talking about, right?
Mhm, mhm,
If I build a company, like, my goal is to make a workplace where people love coming to work, not and, like, personally, my belief is that, like, that doesn't pertain to a to a building, right? It doesn't pertain to me having to watch people do their jobs, right? Yeah, I like social interaction. Yeah, I like to
But
I like
John, you're logical. You're speaking logically. That's what I'm trying to say. Like like emotion is not logical. And you've been working remotely forever. We're all jaded. Let's just start this off to say, hey, we all enjoy remote work. We're very good at it. We've all been probably doing it for 20 years. Like it's cool.
yeah,
But I'm just trying to talk about that person who like I'm just trying to be a little empathetic because I agree with you, John. Like, come on, what are we talking about here? Let's treat people like adults. If people don't want to go to the office, do that thing. But
yeah, all
the
right.
people that are forcing people back to the office, trying to get in the side of their heads, what could it be? A lot of it is emotional, and emotion is sometimes irrational.
So when you're so you approach it with empathy, which is great. You should approach everything with empathy, right? But like
Yeah.
when you're advising CEOs, right?
Yeah.
Are you or and these creators, founders of companies, right?
Mhm.
Are you like is your first question like, okay, why? Why do you feel like people need to come back to work? Like are you trying to understand or figure out what that thing is?
Great question. Great question. Well, the answer to your question is we don't work with those organizations
Fair enough.
because because like what we were just talking about is you cannot convince somebody who firmly feels, and that's what you're hearing. Jamie Dillon from JP Morgan, even Amazon. I
Jamie
feel
Dimon, right?
Jamie Dimon, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Even
Got it.
Amazon, even Amazon, I feel like we do better work. Look at the words. We just do better
All right.
together.
So the answer to
There's
my
no,
question is like CEOs that are like, "Hey, tell me why I'm wrong," aren't coming to us, knocking down our door for us to do that. Right.
and nor do we want to work with those because like the reality is if you're not a culture driven organization already, if you're not a people first company already, there's a good chance you have not required your people to come back into the office 5 days a week at this point. Like how can you come out and say, hey, we care about our people, we're a people first organization, and then you just said, yeah, we're a 100% knowledge based business, meaning that 75 or 80% of our work is done behind the computer screen, and we just decided without surveying people, doing any type of anything, getting data and letting the data speak, we're saying that we want all our people back 5 days a week in office. Oh, and by the way, we're people first. Those things cannot go together, in my
Right.
opinion. I mean, do any of you all disagree?
No, no, I think you're right on.
So one of the things I've been thinking about is that I had a situation where, I was working, in the office, and then we kind of moved to a hybrid model. And then ever since the
Mhm,
pandemic, I've been working remotely. And so
mhm.
one of the things I was thinking about is that there are some connections and some interactions that you just are really difficult to try to replicate. Like you can have like
Yep.
in-person, meetups and company retreats and things like that. But I think that one of the things that kind of stood out for me, and I know we're going to be talking a little bit more about this, was just kind of like maybe, being open to like more of a hybrid approach, for, the different companies where they do want to get people together, but yet, it's not trying to, advocate for like a 5 day a week, in the office every day sort of a schedule. So anyway, it's just, I do think that when we were talking about like there's the productivity aspect of it, but then there are some of these interactions and like these moments where you're just kind of chatting a little bit and it has an impact, and it can be difficult to try to capture that remotely. So just thinking out loud a little bit about that.
That is something that you have to be intentional about, and I think that that's something that Gleam's company helps with, right? Is
That's
building
absolutely
that.
yeah. So I think the first thing that you have to do is exactly what you were just talking about, and that was kind of taking an assessment of kind of your connection. We call that a social connection strategy. So, what we firmly believe is that as an organization, you should be aware of what your connections are like or how connected your organizations are. And we actually group those into three different buckets. So, lifestyle connections, which are, your hobbies, things that you do, professional connections, your colleagues, professional associations, Drupal association, my Drupal friends, right? And then intimate, even like intimate connections, like religion and politics, even romantic partners. Like that's an intimate, those are intimate relationships. So, I'm not saying that you should have date night. A company shouldn't create date night, but they should be aware that people need these types of connections to be just a healthy human being. And if I'm a healthy human being mentally, then I can produce. If I'm depressed, if I'm saddened, then I can't produce at your company. So you have to be aware of those things, right? So back to what Nick was saying, you're 100%. The thing that you have to do in a remote company, what we help people with is like you have to be intentional to ensure that you're having those connection moments. So those retreats, those planning retreats, going to in Drupal's terms, going to Drupal camps and bringing your team there. I learned this. I've seen this from like the media camp folks. I mean, you remember this. You guys would go to conferences, and I remember way back in the day, Dave Terry would schedule his off-site retreat 2 days before Drupal Camp Atlanta and fly everybody in and have their company retreat that day. So it would make more sense because they were already going to Drupal Camp Atlanta that way. So 100%, we sit with organizations, we ask what are their frequencies of times that they get together, what are the purpose for their times to get together, what is it that they're trying to accomplish. There's a great book called The Art of Gathering that we base a lot of our meetings on. It's basically you want to be outcomes driven for your meetings, like what are the outcomes that you want to result from getting together, and then plan. But
Hmm.
the key thing is it's all intentional.
So, so moving the back to the office, you said that the moving back to the topic of going back to the office, if you see a company mandating back to the office just like across the board, is that poor management structure? I mean, is that something you can work with at all, or is that just a red flag?
So you're asking, the question was, if a company's mandating a return to the office, would Blend Me Inc. consult with that company?
No, no, I meant that more general. Like, is it a red flag for a company to just have a back to office mandate? Period. Is that something
Well,
that you think can be worked on from a cultural standpoint? Is that something that people should try to raise internally, or is that like, hey, if they're doing that, they have other management issues probably too?
Yeah,
Is
like
it like a
mm,
it,
symptom, not a cause?
right, like does it identify management issues, right? Because a lot of people say, and I've heard this myself, like,
mhm.
you know, oh, and from managers, I need people in the office so that I can make sure that they're doing their job, right? Which to me literally signifies that as a manager, you don't have trust in your employees that they're getting their stuff done, or you don't have the ability to validate by some other means than watching them work that they are actually doing their jobs.
Okay, yeah. So from a couple different perspectives, I'll answer it. So from a potential employee, like me applying to a job, a mandate would be a red flag that they're not necessarily committed to making data driven decisions.
Mm.
Right. Right. Like
Yeah.
I would have to read what their requirement was. Now maybe this is a company that is maybe a food, a restaurant software company, and they need to be more in the restaurants. So maybe there are reasons, right? Like, so I would have to investigate, but generally speaking, like, if we just want to say software company, like a company that we know doesn't necessarily have to go back to the office. I think as an employee, that would signal something for me there, right? As a manager, like within the company, even I would be concerned there because it's like, okay, well, you're going to make me enforce this policy, but how am I going to explain to my employees the reasons why this policy is being implemented? So now, like, I would feel like you're putting me as a manager in a really bad position because you're not giving me like, you didn't do a company wide survey. So is there a way to roll out a return to office? Yes, there is a way to do it, which is respectful, which is knowledgeable, right? And that is survey people, have the groups. I'm simplifying this, right? But it's getting input from your employees, your asset, the thing that you're changing, right? You're changing how your employees work and interact, you should probably ask them their opinion, right? Ask them their opinion. Now, if all of this was collected, and then the president of the company, mind you, the president, not an HR person, the president of the company is showing the data, like, hey, 60% of you want to be in the office more often for real intentional reasons, and we're going to do that, and that's why we're adding this mandate. That is a thoughtful, you've solicited feedback, you've provided it. This is why we're going to do it. You could roll it out that way. But for the
So
most people, they're not rolling it out that way.
it feels like a lot of extra work and a lot of extra steps and oversight to like have a back to office mandate where we're like, you have to come back to the office, right? Feels like a flipping ton of like busy work for somebody in HR or somebody in management, right? I'm wondering like what benefits do companies see by forcing people back to the office? I mean, obviously we talked about, you know,
Yeah.
towns getting more people into their downtown,
Mhm.
spending more money on lunches and commuting and all that stuff. We've talked about, it being used as an effective way for companies to reduce headcount if that's what they're trying to
Mhm.
do, right? I'm wondering though, is there a legitimate benefit to the company for them to say like you have to come back to the office?
Yeah, I would say that there definitely is, and it would be around connection, John. It would be around that again, that thing that you can't put your finger on, that thing of just feeling, that thing of, you know, hey, I really just love being around the excitement of getting the work done. No matter what,
Mm.
you can't you can't emulate that. And I think that, you know, we talk a lot. There's all sorts of little things you can pull out as we're talking, but I would say that's the big piece of advice that I give to
Like,
our clients is you cannot actually emulate in-person work with remote work.
okay, so
And
I
that's what people are trying to do.
I agree with that. Love workshops, love getting with clients in a room and like figuring something out. Like very energetic, very, very
That's
positive,
it.
right? Get that. But like, so like to me, that feels like, hey, instead of forcing some sort of back to work mandate, we're going to go to a hybrid policy where you have to be in the office up to 2 days a week or something like that, right? Like, and you can pick the days, we don't care, like, just make sure you're in the office, make sure you're scheduling on-site meetings, like, right? Like, am I wrong here? Like, that feels like a
There's
better solution
advantages.
to me, right?
Disadvantages. So the fully remote, the easiest, fully on-site, the easiest. Those are two easy work models because everybody's exactly the same. You can approach everybody exactly somewhat the same when you're talking about work modality and where you are. When you get into hybrid, it's the most difficult. And I think that's why we're seeing the return to office by so many people because, John, there are so many different variations of what you just mentioned. So I often lean towards trying to figure out if you're not going to be hybrid by choice. So there's hybrid by choice, which means there's no requirement, whatever, not even like monthly. It's just hybrid by choice. That works, right? Only if you're also putting on these intentional gatherings because the reasons why people may want to go on into the office is to connect. And then if you go into the office and no one's there, then you're not connecting. So now you're not getting the benefits of being in
Mm.
person. So is hybrid by choice actually accomplishing the goal of connecting? Not quite sure. In a lot of cases, no. So then some people say, hey, we're gonna do Wednesdays in office requirement for everyone. Now, is that good? Yeah, it might work for connection because are there, they know other people are there, but it might not be good for flexibility. What if I have a doctor's appointment on that Wednesday? Or I have to pick up my child. So now you're sacrificing some of the flexibility. So I think to answer your question, John, the benefit of your original question, what's the benefit? It is connection. That is the benefit
Yep.
of being in person.
And you raise a good point there too, because I honestly never really thought of like if you're looking to go to the office because you want that connection with other people, unless you schedule a like predefined meeting, right?
That's
Like
intentional,
like
right? Yep,
right.
yep.
Like, you're not gonna get that feeling if, like, you go to the office and there
No,
are, like, 2 other people there. And chances
40%.
are they're, like, the 2 other people that you don't actually wanna talk to. Like,
Correct,
you know what I
correct.
mean?
Right? Yep. And then, and then when you get into a little bit bigger company, maybe in that, 500, 300 to 500 range, a lot of your team isn't, maybe your team isn't in one location. So like you might go into your designated office that they have for you, but like the other team members might be in a whole different location, like different part of the country. So yeah, I think it's just a really difficult scenario. Hybrid's difficult. I would like my preference if I were going to advise someone. I think hybrid by choice is. I think that's the best scenario because you're being true to yourself. You're being true to people first. But as far as connection, you're going to do hybrid by choice. You really have to spend some money and some intentionality on saying like maybe we're coming in at the first or second of the month. Everybody like you have to put some sort of consistent monthly or in person something. What I like doing, I think for small businesses, which are easier, is probably just if you're gonna do hybrid and you're gonna have some sort of office and setting, just pick one day, not a Monday, not a Friday, to come into the office. And I think it's just easier for people's minds. They can schedule around it every week. I think people want it. I think the predictability people enjoy, right? I got to go into the office on Wednesday.
Okay.
It's a little bit easier mentally.
Okay. So you had mentioned that, like, obviously, you've been taking into consideration how happy employees are. You mentioned flexibility, like if they need to go somewhere. So you were thinking that hybrid by choice is probably the best option. And you also mentioned that one strategy that you've seen that seems to work pretty well is like picking the day. Everybody has a consistent day where they're coming into the office to build those connections. Are there any other sorts of hybrid models that you've seen that work? Like whether it's a
Yeah.
variation on one of those or others?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've seen a interesting there's been some really cool ones. Like I've seen what was it like was it one total week I've seen? Just one full week, which is interesting in the whole month.
Like the firefighter model where, like, you work, like, 14 days on, 5 days off or something like that, right?
I guess, but like you have to pick one full week to work on site.
Oh,
Like that's
that's
it. They pick
interesting.
you pick a full week. At first I was like, "Oh, that's kind of I don't know if I like that." Like but in a weird way I was like, "Oh, wait, like get your mind right. I'm just gonna commute for 1, 2, 3, and I think their full week was 4 days too, so it wasn't like they were going 5 days. They just
Yeah.
went Monday through Thursday for, like, the last week in the month, and they, like, put a lot of their
Yeah.
meetings booked in. Interesting. Just
That
an interesting
also
idea.
Yeah.
probably widens your ability to hire too, because, like, as an employee, I could probably live further away if I know, like, "Hey, for
Right.
1 week a month, I'm gonna fly into the office, I'm
Yeah,
be there in person, and I'm gonna
yeah,
stay at a hotel, and then I'm gonna fly home," and, like, that's it for me,
I
right?
mean, I worked with a guy at a I mean, one of my clients had a guy that worked there that lived in Denver and was in the office every, like, 2 weeks in Boston, and I thought it was
yep,
Yeah,
insane,
early on,
but
like, before the pandemic, I actually looked at a job, and that was kinda like the deal was like, "Hey, you need to be in the office once a month," and, like, you would have to fly in, and I'm like, alright, like, I can deal with that, right?"
mhm.
Turned out
Well,
it was, like, all the way across the country, so I was kinda like, a little bit less
yeah,
keen on it, but, like, I could see, New York is a couple-hour train ride from here, so, like, I could see doing that once a month, no problem.
yep. Yeah, I've seen the once a month requirement. I think some of the real flexible companies have done that who have an office. I think the once a month is a kind of a common one, like, "Hey, you have to come here once a month." And then there was another one, I'm trying to think if it was, like I feel like they said, like, 3 weeks out of a 3 weeks and a quarter or something like that, which I thought
mm,
was also another interesting one. And I've seen
I mean,
also oh, yeah, the last one. The one I've seen
go ahead.
was a full month. I've seen a full month. So a
Out of the
full
year?
month, a quarter. Yeah.
Oh, a quarter, okay.
A full month.
Yeah,
I've
I
seen a
mean
full month, a quarter, which is that would kind of agitate me, honestly. a full month, like
Yeah.
right, you start getting in the groove of every day,
Like,
and then like,
okay, you're not gonna see dad for the whole month of February, but don't worry, I'll be back
yeah,
in March.
right, right, yeah, yeah. So yeah, I
I
like that.
mean,
Good question.
yeah, it's interesting. So, have you seen? I mean, we all know that there's exceptions for certain levels for policies always, but have you seen kind of significant variation in these policies applied depending on kind of what level in the company you are? Is it more like, hey, if you're a level one employee, then you have to come in to work all the time. If you're management, you have to come in 3 days a week. If you're senior VP, you come in once a week. And if you're above that, do whatever you want. Do you see significant variation depending on kind of your seniority level, or is it kind of global?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because people who are good at their job, they don't have to listen. I'm just, I'm just telling them. Look, I'm listening to everybody. Like, look, the reality is, so some of the biggest. I don't know these stats. I wish I had all these stats in front of me. So people are gonna have to Google these, but Google like how well people are abiding by the policy. It's not very well enforced at any of these companies. Like, oh, return to work, we're back to the office.
So
Even
so it's
like,
more of a like, "Hey, we're gonna say it," and then you just do whatever you want, but at least
right.
we said it.
If you're balling out, listen, especially in sales just salespeople can do what they want if they're balling out. If you're out there making sales and you have a return to office policy, I'm pretty sure the top salesperson isn't even listening to the policy.
It's
If
funny
you
because I know of a small company where it was the exact opposite. Like, the director wanted everybody in the office all the time. And it was,
Mhm.
again, I think it goes back to, like, management practices and poor management
Yep,
practices, but,
preference.
like, they wanted them there to be able to say, like, "Oh, I'm watching you work. I'm watching you do your job." But I agree with you, like, most good salespeople, if you're selling the hell out of things, like,
Yeah. So back
I
to your
was
question, Nick, I would say like high level executives, they can't hide as much. I think like in some companies, the high level executives are kind of working remotely, although there's a company wide policy. But for the most part, like the VP level, they all have to kind of implement the policy. So a lot of them are kind of following suit. You know what I mean? But when you go in between and you're looking at people that are just high level performers, I mean, your top developer just crushing your tickets, and there's a full, I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
some of the Amazon AI folks and some of the, even the Twitter AI folks, although he's saying they're all 100% in office. Actually, I think I've even read he's kind of pulled back on some of those requirements because, like, I'll just jump to Anthropic. I'll jump to Facebook. You've seen what they're paying
Yeah.
people for AI. So if you're performing well in your job, I'm pretty sure you can negotiate with your boss.
I mean,
Yeah,
what
I'm not.
wasn't Facebook paying like 10 or $15 million in stock bonuses to these people?
Yeah,
Like, yeah.
I'm pretty sure that
so
person's not gonna have to go to the office to Facebook 5 days a week. I'm
Could you
pretty sure.
imagine hiring somebody for, a
Yeah,
developer? Not we're not
yeah.
talking C-suite or anything. Can you imagine hiring a developer for $50 million a year and then being like, "Oh, sorry, you didn't come to the office. You're fired."
So I wonder, you said one thing, Kaleem, like, most of your C-suite, right? They're not in the office anyway, right? Because they're traveling here, they're traveling there, they're meeting
Mhm.
with clients, they're doing right. So like they pretty much already get it. And like this, I'm generalizing, obviously, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they kind of get a get out of jail free card, right? I'm wondering though, like, as an employee coming in, have you heard of people kind of negotiating work from home or hybrid as part of their, like, compensation package where they're like, I see you guys, like, force people to come to the office. I'll come to the office, like, 2 days a week."
I haven't necessarily dealt with that situation
Okay.
personally, but yes, it's definitely happening, especially in this climate. And I would say if you're like as an employee, and again, we don't work with individuals on how to be better remote workers, or we only train organizations on how to manage their remote employees and how to be
Sure.
better people first companies. But I would say, as just a potential employee, like I would want that in my offer letter.
Right, yeah.
I would want something written. The
Makes
thing
sense.
that stinks, though, as a person who has to like also do the people ops stuff, it doesn't matter what they put in it because they can change it.
Sure, right.
In certain states, let me be clear, I'm not an attorney on that. In certain states,
Yep.
they put a little caveat in there that says they can update their thing as needed. So
Like, when you're sleeping, we're gonna change this. So, before we let you go, Kaleem,
yeah,
I wanna try to avoid the political angle here,
yeah,
but a lot of companies are kinda cutting their DEI initiatives, and I'm wondering, like, why are they doing that? Is it another cost-cutting measure, or is it,
fear.
is it something else? Fear, alright.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I'll answer that pretty easily. I think it's fear. There are, with the way the laws have passed, some of the laws have changed federally. Some of these DEI programs are at risk of being, legally people trying to sue. So companies are trying to reduce their risk. Yeah. So like the laws change. Like you can't, if you have too many things out there on your site, so all government sites have scrubbed any type of, we're looking for culture ad, we're looking for diversity of thought, diversity of opinions.
I see.
You can't now have that stuff. Or you could be open to a reverse discrimination lawsuit, which did open up the floodgates. I think the case won. And again, please do not quote me on this. Like we always suggest, we do not do employment law. We always have an attorney. We always suggest that all of our clients get an employee. I mean, an attorney, an employment attorney. But yes, that is what's happening right now. So organizations are
Mm,
kind of reactive in fear. Now, I will say, and like especially if there's big mergers, we've seen like for example T-Mobile,
mm.
they just scrubbed because there was a big phone company merger. Who were they merging with? The US Cellular? I can't
I think it
remember.
was started with an M or something. I can't remember
Huge
the name of
company,
the
supposed to be
company.
this huge.
Yeah.
Well, the Department of Justice
Yeah.
held that one up. So like not to get too political, but the Department of Justice held up the merger. So
Yeah.
they scrubbed all of their DEI stuff, and now the merger's approved. So you
Interesting.
can kind of see that. But back to something positive. Organizations that are not scrubbing all their stuff, they're sticking true. There's plenty of them out there.
Yeah.
Kind of talked about, it's not the same thing as this, but I kind of posted an article about what does it mean if you do not provide Juneteenth as a paid holiday off? What does that mean? How does that how is your company perceived? Now, some people don't care because you're going to have a faction of people that don't mind, but then you're going to have a faction of people that do mind. And I'm pretty sure Target has realized since the Target ban from the black community
Hmm.
how removing diversity programs can impact your employer brand. And I kind of want to end this to talk about your employer brand. If you require people to return to the office and you're not providing your employees a federal holiday that, celebrates the last day of slavery, you're not providing those, people will notice and people will see because your employer brand, that's about how you treat your employees. That's about what it's like to work at your company. That's about what your values are. By not doing those things, it kind of articulates what your values are. And those things spread over into your customers. So, yes, there are diversity programs being cut, but those are going to have lasting impacts on their employer brand. And
Yeah.
you know what? I'm pretty sure certain companies, I know that I would probably not apply at a job that didn't provide me Juneteenth off. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think in general, one of the things that companies forget is that a lot of these things are a social contract between them and their employees and them and their customers. It's not just, whatever policy we're talking about, right?
Social contract. Thank you, Nick. That is the phrase of the day. You are in a social freaking contract. All the stuff that we talk about at Blend, it has to deal with the relationship between you and your employees. I love that, Nick. It is a social contract. And no, it's not on the books as a true number. It's not a true expense. We were talking a lot about feelings. Oh, talk about feelings. Guess what? Feelings
And
are
people, I
why
mean, people go back to the economics of it. People buy with their feelings. Like
people
if
buy
they
with their
know, hey,
feelings.
company X has done this terrible thing or does not support this type of person, like, well, I'm going to go to company Y because company Y does do that and
The
they're going to get
Target
my money,
strike. The
right?
Target strike is a perfect example. I'm talking. I think it's 1 billion. I don't know what the numbers is, but they lost a lot of money, a lot of money, so much that
Yeah.
they're begging the black community, please come back.
Oh, please.
So
Yeah.
anyway, good stuff.
So
Love talking with you guys. I gotta run. This
yeah.
was awesome.
Well, thank you, Kaleem. As always, it's a pleasure chatting about workplace culture and what you do at Blend Me.
Really appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Check us out. Check me out on the socials at Kaleem Clarkson everywhere. Definitely LinkedIn. And don't forget to check out the website blendmeinc.com.
Awesome. Do you have questions or feedback? Reach out to Talking Drupal on the socials with the handle Talking Drupal or by email with show@talkingdrupal.com. You can connect with our hosts and other listeners on Drupal Slack in the Talking Drupal channel.
You can promote your Drupal community event on Talking Drupal. Learn more at talkingdrupal.com/tpromo.
Get the Talking Drupal newsletter to learn more about our guest hosts, show news, upcoming shows, and much more. Sign up for the newsletter at talkingdrupal.com/newsletter.
And thank you, patrons, for supporting Talking Drupal. Your support is greatly appreciated. You can learn more about becoming a patron at talkingdrupal.com and choosing Become a Patron. All right, Kaleem, I know you just said it, but if our listeners want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Okay. Follow me on all the socials, LinkedIn, at Clean Clarkson on the Instas, on the TikToks, on the Facebooks. Check me out. And don't forget to go to blendmeinc.com. And it's built on
Perfect.
Drupal, of course.
Perfect. And Rich, how about you?
Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I think that's probably the easiest way.
Great. And John, how about you?
You can find me personally at Picozzi.com on all the social media and Drupal.org at John Picozzi. And you can find out about EPAM at EPAM.com.
And you can find me pretty much everywhere at Nixvan, NICXVAN.
And as always, if you've enjoyed listening, we've enjoyed talking. Have a good one,
See
everyone.
you guys next week. Right.
Peace.
See you later.
Bye.
Thanks.
Nice. Thanks,
Good.
fellas. Good stuff.
Hey, thanks for joining us. A great conversation.
Can't wait to listen. I'll talk to you later.
Hey, have a good
See you
one.
later. Thanks. Bye.